there's trees, and there's just this one giant redwood. Good morning to you. Good Friday morning. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports. This is Daily Shot of Pirates. It comes your way bright and early every weekday. If you're into football and or hockey, I also offer daily shots of Steelers and Penguins in the same place that you found this. Club was off yesterday, traveling from Phoenix to San Diego. They'll begin a 3-game weekend set tonight at Petco Park against the Padres. Eager to build, I'm sure, off of those two ridiculous offensive outbursts to close out winning the series over the Diamondbacks just now. So that's some of the trees. That's the forest, I guess. And we can all get caught up in that stuff. The day-to-day stuff, the GM stuff, the ownership stuff, the payroll stuff. Even the individual performances of the resident redwood. What Paul Skenes does on a start-to-start basis really shouldn't be observed within the context of any of these meaningless games. They should be observed, at least I think, in the literal prism of greatness. I do not like overusing that term. I save it for the Mario Lemieux and Sidney Crosby and Troy Polamalu and TJ Watt, the guys that are absolutely at the peak of their professions with what they achieve. And even then, when it comes to Mario and Sid, there's another level up there. Skenes, my friends, is living at that level. Let's step for a moment all the way back, meaning all 35 starts that he's made at the major league level. His numbers are, and I want you to, if you can, pay a little bit of extra attention, process some of these numbers. Don't just hear me ripping them off and say, oh yeah, that all sounds good. Yeah, we know he's great. Absorb this, please, all the way. 35 starts into his career. He's got a 2.03 ERA. He's struck out 247 batters in 208 innings. He has an 0.94 whip. Opponents bat 194 against him. He's never given up more than 6 hits in any start. That one I'm going to repeat. Never given up more than 6 hits in any of those 35 starts. The number of pitchers throughout Major League history who have done that in their first 35 starts is exactly 1. It's Paul Skenes. That 2.03 ERA that I mentioned, Skenes turned 23 years old yesterday. He has the second lowest ERA before his 23rd birthday since ERA became an official stat in 1912. The only one who was lower was Dutch Leonard way back in the 1913 and 14 seasons. Leonard was at 1.86. Babe Ruth from 1914 to 17 had a 2.07 ERA. Yes, for those of you unfamiliar with your distant baseball history, Ruth was a really good pitcher before he became the preeminent hitter, really of all time relative to his peers. Skenes sits right between those two, between Leonard and the Babe. But bringing this back to the modern day, since Skenes made his debut on May 11th of 2024, that 2.03 ERA is the best across the majors by a big margin. Next lowest is 2.31 from Hunter Brown. Then you get to 2.4 with Max Fried. 2.52 from the great Tarik Skubal. The things that he's doing right now in Detroit are mind-blowing. Chris Sale is after that at 2.56. This is Skenes at his very beginning. And we can talk about Skubal. We can talk about Sale, a veteran. This is Skenes just getting started. And have I mentioned yet in this show that he's doing so for a not very good team? Meaning no run support to allow him to relax. They're not great defensively, to say the least. He doesn't get decent-sized breaks in the dugout between innings. Everything's usually all morbid in the atmosphere. And this is the result? This is the statistical output? I'm going to share with you a funny story. Do you remember I guess it was just really the first week of April and then it disappeared, but there were all these videos that were making the rounds on social media about Skenes' arm slot dipping or dropping. And then when correlated with his not throwing 100 miles an hour regularly, there were some theories put out there, including by some responsible analysts, that he was maybe doing something a little bit different, or the Pirates were screwing him up, or now everybody wants him to pitch to contact so he's more efficient, because there was efficiency being discussed in Bradenton. It turns out nobody had actually asked him. So I approached him. This was just before this trip at PNC Park earlier this week. And I said, this arm slot thing. And he smiles a little bit. He's like, it's about time somebody brought this up with me. He had seen, heard, and read stuff about it. And the only one of those various theories that were out there that kind of bugged him was that he was doing it on purpose. Like he didn't want to strike people out. He was just changing what it was that got him the results in 2024. So it was at this point that I was wondering if we were going to get super detailed, super advanced. Pitching is really complicated. And instead, what he told me was as simple as could be. I'm a bigger guy. I got long arms, long limbs. I've got a lot of moving parts. And every once in a while, I got to keep an eye on that arm slot. I've got to make sure that it's staying where it's supposed to stay. It doesn't always do that. To which, right then and there, I interjected, but it didn't affect your results at all. He goes, no, not really. And there it went. Poof. The arm slot crisis. The they're messing with him crisis. And the numbers between April and May really aren't any different. It's incredible, actually, how similar they are. This is greatness. This, what we're witnessing, is greatness. Of course, make it independent. Cut it off and make it its own island from the rest of everything else that's going on. But this is greatness, and it's happening in a Pittsburgh uniform. When we come back, J1Q. If you're looking for a great dining experience, look no further than North Shore Tavern. Located directly across Federal Street from PNC Park, next door to Mike's Beer Bar, North Shore Tavern is Pittsburgh's home for steak on a stone. Enjoy your steak finished on a hot lava stone in front of you, where you ensure each piece is cooked to exactly your liking. Or try their rotating selection of entrees, hot sandwiches, salads, and burgers, all while enjoying the ambiance dedicated to the great players and history of the Pittsburgh Pirates all around you. Come see why everyone's talking about North Shore Tavern and steak on a stone.
It's Gun Storage Check Week. Help prevent unwanted access to your firearms. No one wants their unsecured gun to be used in an accident, a suicide, or a crime. Use lockboxes, safes, and locks to secure your firearms. Learn more at gunstoragechek.org. That's gunstoragechek.org. Brought to you by NSSF, the Firearm Industry Trade Association.
Today's J1Q comes from Lou, who says, DK, if it was really Adam Frazier who helped Henry Davis find his swing, which I think is the big reason for Davis's improvement at the plate, why didn't any of the three hitting coaches figure it out? Lou, I'm going to start with a couple of clarifications here, really, to make sure that we're at least talking about this in the most accurate context possible. When Davis said in Phoenix that Frazier had helped him, he was referring specifically to Frazier spending really not more than 10 or 12 minutes with him, showing him a very specific drill aimed at a very specific objective. It was, in essence, a way to hit the ball off the tee, tighten your wrists, make sure you're pulling the ball. Now, Henry also, without any sort of provocation, credited Matt Haig and the hitting coaches. Now, you know and I know, Lou, the way anything like that's going to get interpreted in the broader public. In reality, all we have to go on is what the athlete spoke out loud there. And what he spoke out loud was giving credit to a lot of people, including Frazier, for the implementation of that drill. Now, that said, if you want to give Frazier credit for something, and I'm going to admit here in advance that I'm about to hijack your question for my own purposes, Lou. So just, ride with me here, okay? When Frazier was signed, he was signed in the vicinity of signing Tommy Pham, and then everybody got to Bradenton, and the conversation began with Derek Shelton and continued on to Ben Cherington. Bob Nutting brought it up about how they really valued the acquisitions, plural, of Frazier and Pham, and they ended up getting twinned together in every mention. And I'm not going to lie, I heard it so often, I was guilty of it myself. Well, that never should have been the case, okay? Frazier isn't the hitter that he was in his last go-round with the Pirates when he was, leading the National League batting average, but he's been a pretty good hitter. Of late, he's actually been a very good hitter. He's got 12 hits in his last 8 games, including some pop. For the season, he has the second highest batting average on the team, behind Isaiah Kiner-Falefa. He's at 255. Kiner-Falefa, who, by the way, is getting no love from anybody, is hitting 297 with a 343 OBP. Now, he hasn't had much in the way of power, 1 home run and 10 extra base hits, but he's holding up his end. Frazier's not far behind him in that regard. Now, I can also throw in that Frazier's been pretty solid at second base and at times has done some really nice things out there. And I can tell you firsthand from covering both of these stints of his that he works very, very, very hard at his defense. Those who go back will recall that he was originally an outfielder, and once the Pirates moved him to second base, he realized that was where he was going to be, so he just busted his behind to get comfortable there. Pham is hitting 206. He's got 4 extra base hits. Count them. 1, 2, 3, 4 in 131 at-bats. Of the singles that he's got, and don't hold me to this because this is just a perception thing on my part, I'll bet half of them are infield squibs. You know what I'm talking about? Can you picture that in your... Okay, good. Also, and most relevant to my bringing this up today, Frazier's been a real leader on this team. He's been a no-nonsense, go-about-his-business professional the way he's always been, but he's also available to his teammates and working with them. And if you think about the dynamics of, Henry being a catcher, he's going to spend most of his time either with other catchers or obviously working with the pitchers. There's an extra step or bridge that's involved in your everyday second baseman going to the catcher and saying, hey, I got something that might work for you here. And that is, by the way, the order in which it went. So let's all, before the weekend comes along, make like this, group pledge or something that we don't lump Frazier and Pham together. Frazier is doing his job. Pham is pretty much screaming for a DFA. I appreciate the question. I appreciate everybody listening to Daily Shot of Pirates all week long. We'll be back with another one on Monday.